So you want to talk about some of the EG stuff now? Because it's going to take some time to dive into.
Though. There's two ways we can do this. One, there's the whole real topic of like, if people don't know, we updated you that she deleted her Twitter. Nicole Jameson now essentially has officially stood down. And what they've done is EG is so shameless as a company, they can't even let the person just disappear out the back door and just do like a simple message, thanks for what you did and, the good and the bad. No, what they've had to do, because this is who EG, the company is they have done a full spectrum propaganda, like exit as though like, joke, dude, they were like this close to giving her a ticker tape parade. This is mental, mate. Like, you would think she went to the moon or something, the way they're treating her. Like, it's actually outrageous. But here's the good news. Before we get into all the hypotheticals and everything, I actually have something exclusive on this episode. The producer can bring it up. That's straight fire. So one of my sources gave me this email that you can look at on screen now. This email was sent to everyone within Evil Genius. So this is what you can see there. Judy from Peak Six, which is the company, the investment group, the arbitrage company, that owns Evil Geniuses, and put Nicole Jameson in her position, by the way. This person sent this internal email, and this is the tone that they're messaging internally. So remember, guys, this is the most egregious part. This isn't even meant for people outside the company. This isn't like where you just got some bullshit marketing guy, just fucking lie to them. Who cares? It's all sophistry. This is what internally they want people to think. So what I'll do is I'll read some of it now, and then we'll just get into how funny some of it is, basically. So the email from Judy Hart at Peak Six says, Peak Sixers, already I am cringed beyond belief. What are you talking about? Like, you mean Evil Genius? What are you, really, okay, Peak Sixers. By the way, shit name if you're going to have it. How about Peakers or something, you daft fucker? How about P6s? I don't know. Peak Sixers doesn't mean anything. But today, Peak Six congratulates Nicole on her amazing accomplishments and wishes her the best of luck in her next stage. We believe that Peak Six has always developed champions, and Nicole personifies this. I don't know how she does. In what way is she a champion as a CEO? But okay. Then, this is where it gets mad, because they do that classic thing where they tell on themselves and don't realize they do it. So they go, Nicole originally came to Peak Six as an intern before joining us full-time after graduating college, right? Pause. So what you mean is she used to work for us as an intern, then finished her degree, and we just made her a CEO. That's not nepotism. What are you talking about? Why would you even write that? Like, you didn't even put, she learned valuable skills in her degree, which meant, essentially what you just said there is your proposals. But okay, then it goes, she worked across several different companies, gaining experience and skills before eventually rising to the role of CEO Evil Genius. By the way, by rising, she was just put straight into that role. She didn't rise at all. She was just granted that God Emperor status or something.
EG, their IP and their history was bought by P6, and she was installed into a role despite having no experience as a CEO, no experience in esports, and by all accounts being terrible at all of these things.
And then it starts to get funny, because then it goes, she applied the same idea of developing champions. What idea? All they did there was establish at the beginning, we develop champions, and since we hired her, she does it too. So she continued to plan. What do you thought? What did she apply? Nothing, but anyway. It goes, she applied the same to the culture at EG and grew the organization to a global powerhouse in esports. Now, if you don't know, it is a classic cliche of a hack marketer to call everyone who's good a powerhouse. That's a classic piece of like sports writing cliche that you avoid if you're good. Like, if you call everyone a powerhouse, you sound like an idiot. And if you call EG a powerhouse, you sound like a cretin. Because the idea that they were like, powerhouse would imply as an org that they're like competing for best org in the world. Now, if people don't know, as we'll get to in this email here, here's what EG did. Now, it just so happens right now they did just have a massive accomplishment. They won the World Championship of Valorant. That is huge. You cannot argue that. Now, look, I wouldn't say Valorant is quite at the League of Legends door to CS:GO level, but it's only one notch below, and that is still very competitive. Now, we will say, don't worry, Korea and China are nowhere near what they are in League of Legends. I hope that goes without saying. That's why NA can win a World Championship. But even so, Europe's very good. It's a developed game now. So there's one World Championship. But here's the problem, guys. They're then going to make it sound like she won the World Championship in every game. Get ready. Even though, when you actually look at what the other game accomplishments are, you wouldn't even put these side by side, if you're honest. Like, you would never even want to downplay the Valorant Championship by making it sound like. So it goes, from the very beginning, we set the goal of winning championships in all major titles. Pause. Notice how it just says winning championships. It doesn't say winning the World Championship. Now, that's going to be very relevant, because it's about to do all the heavy lifting. Because it goes, all the major titles, CSGO, LCS and Valorant. My favorite part is they didn't even put Dota 2. The fucking game that the whole org is famous for the last 10 years. The one that they won TI on. You didn't even put Dota 2 in there because even you're smart enough to know, well, we didn't win TI, so there's no point, is there? So don't even put that in there. Instead, you slip Valorant in there like Valorant was the biggest game in the world. But okay, that's all good. So then are you ready? I'm going to pick this apart completely. It goes, after winning trophies in CSGO in 2019, that's true. In CSGO, they actually did have a team, by the way, that even beat Astralis in a tournament, had a couple of big, it was only about like 3-4 months, but they actually did at the very beginning of her tenure, they did have a very good squad. It was the former NRG team. But
and they bought, by the way, that had nothing to do with her. They bought that team for $3 million from NRG.
They didn't develop it. They didn't add a player. They did
exactly.
nothing.
They literally spent money.
They bought a team that at the previous major, the Real World Championship, had come semi-finals and lost to the winners, Astralis, and they already were essentially the most obvious team to buy. And, spoiler, I'll say it again because I've said it in the past, the actual thing I heard from behind the scenes, confirmed by the relevant parties, was this team only went to EG by pure happenstance/spite. It was actually going to be signed by someone like TSM, but because Reggie/Lena just went to Tarek or something and was like, join now, it's break your contract. The NRG guy heard that and basically was like, fuck you, sell them to anyone except that, and sold them for only $3 million to EG. So you're essentially locked into a great roster that won a few championships, then went off the boil, right? So then, you didn't, and by the way, you didn't win a major there, but it goes, okay, and winning LCS in 2022, right? We've now gone from winning some of the bigger tournaments in Counter-Strike to just winning the fourth best region in League of Legends. But you notice how the way this is phrased makes it sound like that could just be Worlds, bro, like, what, winning LCS? And then it goes, we capped off the run. Fuck your run. Your run starts in 2019, skips forwards to 2022 in a totally different game in a smaller region, and then caps off the run. What run? What is the run there, by the way? What is the run between 2019 and then going to a different game in 2022 and win NA once? So, okay, then it goes, we capped off the run by winning the World Championship in Valorant this past week. Yeah, you did. That's right. You had nothing to do. There's no connection whatsoever, by the way, between winning Valorant now and winning a CSGO tournament in 2019 and winning LCS last year with a team that you cut the players from. And one of them was literally almost hospitalized and could never play League of Legends again. I don't know what the connection is, but this is where it gets funny. This is where it gets actually hilarious. Because this next part is like bad SNL skit writing, mate. Are you ready, guys? It goes, think about this, right? Even if you really like someone, you don't want to like over-egg the pudding because even they'll know this is a bit insincere. Get ready for the sentence about to be read out. It goes, Nicole joins Lorena Ochoa. I'm not sure who that is. Do you know who that is, Monty? Is it like an athlete or something?
Must be. Most of these people are
Ochoa. I don't know who that is, but check that one for me quickly.
A professional golfer.
I assume she's just the best or something would be my guess, right?
I think these were people who just retired in their prime.
Right, there you go. And then it goes Lorena Ochoa, Sean Connery, the all-time great actor. You ready? Ken Dryden, who if people don't know was that like god tier hockey goalie for like I think it was the Canadians, the Montreal Canadiens years ago. He was a fucking amazing player, and he was famously like I think he became a champion when he was like 18 or something. He was like one of those like prodigies. And then Mia Hamm, who's like a female soccer player, if people remember, they call the GOAT or whatever the fuck. And it goes, as people who have stepped back when they were at the very top of the world professionally, right? That is so egregious, it is mental. Because not only are some of those people champions and goats in their games, Monty, but even better, Sean Connery ran the fucking game on Hollywood for like a 50-year span, doing any movie he wanted. Just every 5 years, he was like an Oscar-nominated type fucker. Then at the end, basically just said, I've had enough with movies, actually. I will choose to willingly walk away. Now, the worst thing about that is not only is she in no context on the level of these people, but it's even disgusting, Monty, that they're pretending she's choosing to walk away. That's the most gross part. It's not like Ken Dryden almost killed someone and then went, you know what, I choose to retire. Shut the fuck up. So it's not only if you put them in a category like, by the way, I challenge you, how could you make that sentence more ridiculous? Like, what
I mean, you add the next one.
It's mad, isn't it?
You add the next one.
So here we go. Then it goes, Nicole will go on to do even greater things.
Like all of them, Nicole will go on to like all of them, Nicole will go on to do even greater things. But that doesn't make sense, Thorin, because the whole point of the previous sentence was that they retired and didn't do any more work at their peak. They didn't. None of those people went on to do greater things. When Sean Connery retired, he didn't go do greater things. That was his career. He had reached the peak of his career. And the whole point of your previous sentence was that these were people who were on top and voluntarily walked away. They retired. Their best moments were behind them. So they did not go on to do even greater things. So I don't even know what this fucking analogy is. The analogy itself doesn't work. And it is completely absurd to put her in the category of these people when she's not even close to the best esports CEO, much less the best CEO in the world.
Monte, in 5 years, are you ready? Mark my words. In 5 years, her name will only ever be mentioned in connection with the Danny scandal. That is it. Or incompetence. No one will even remember in 5 years they won LCS and they won Valorant under her reign. I guarantee, because the joke is, I mean, we'll get to it in a second, but one of the most egregious things about the way they're spinning this in the interviews is they're making it sound like she herself, like, there was a lot of scrutiny. It's like, you put yourself out there all the time. You were putting fucking jokes from the account on your thing. But anyway, we'll finish off reading it. It goes, Jenny just said, Nicole has achieved every competitive goal we set for ourselves. In that case, EG is a dog shit org, because I would have set goals like this, Monty, win the CSGO major, win the international in Dota. How's the crazy one for you, Monty? You know, I maybe win Worlds of League of Legends. Wouldn't those be goals you'd set for yourself? But no, apparently their goals involved winning tournaments 4 years ago in CSGO. By the way, you notice they don't mention there, Monty, that when she leaves the organization, so when she leaves, when they win in Valorant, we're supposed that to be relevant. She did that. When they leave in CSGO, I don't know if you know this, they're still losing all their series on LAN. The EG CSGO team still loses all the time. They lose online all the time. Like, how dare you even mention just only the success 4 years ago and then nothing later? And they're like, well, and then she leaves, a champion. Like, fuck you. So then it goes, we are the best in the world at this is the intern. Remember what I said again, guys. Don't get this twisted. This isn't a bullshit PR release where you know you're lying. They are gaslighting their own employees that this is how reality is. And everyone's supposed to go, yep, yum, ice cream, yum, gang, EG, gang. Like, you're all just NPCs. You're just reading this. Well, seems fine to me. Nothing wrong there. So this is when the next sentence goes actually mental. It goes, we are the best in the world at esports. Oh, fucking hell, strap in already.
Get me out, Thorin. Get me out.
It is no surprise. Are you ready? When this sentence ends, you'll just think, you fucking pieces of shit. We are the best in the world at esports. What could be the reason why? Oh, don't worry. It's magic. It's magic. Get ready. And it's no surprise to me that we have done this with such a diverse group of players, coaches, and so essentially at the end of it all, you know, all that success, all the great competitive stuff, that was because they had women and people who were black in the team. What?
It's also that the differences are their greatest strengths. You know, Thorin. The differences cause them to be the best in the world of esports. Even though I would just say this: historically, the best people in the world of esports are just Korean people. Just one kind of person.
The joke is, but by the way, that's the ultimate argument against that stupid logic, isn't it? But if as they say, diversity is our strength, then logically all Koreans should speak English, break up, have 2 Chinese players, have a player from NA and a player from, you know what I mean? Like, obviously that strength is being all Korean and Chinese, you fucking idiots, isn't it?
It doesn't, nothing about this aligns with reality at all. I just love we are the best in the world at esports, which is just not even remotely true
there's one last line
at all.
We have to get to, because this line, if you thought already, well, you know what, Thorin, all right, they got a bit out of pocket. They over-egged the pudding on the examples, but the email's almost over. How about this sentence? Matt Holzier added, if Nicole is the Warren Buffett of esports, pause. Right, wait a minute. Just so everyone understands, Warren Buffett is one of the greatest investors in the history of the stock market. If you don't know, by the way, the stock market's like a pretty competitive field. It's kind of like chess. Everyone who ever wanted to be good at it essentially has tried, and it's insanely difficult. And famously, most people can't beat the market, Monty. That's just some shit from movies. Most people would be advised, in past times at least, to just invest in the index S&P 500 fund and just take the year on year like gradual. That's what normally people are advised to do. Warren Buffett is one of those people who actually buys stocks and holds them and just has made like countless billions doing it. So they not only compare to her, but they even do it as a bullshit. If she's the Warren Buffett esports, in what context would she be the Warren Buffett of esports?
Yeah. Also, hilariously, here's another just fun objective fact. Warren Buffett is famous for, as you say, making savvy bets that make him a lot of money. He has outperformed like the stock market as a whole for basically his entire existence over 50 years, right? And not by a little bit either, but by significant margins.
Yeah.
Yes, he's a genius. And so, but the funny thing is, Thorin, is what happened to EG's investment? They probably paid $30 or $35 million for this LCS slot. That LCS slot is worth maybe, it's probably lost, I don't know, 66% of their value.
Pretty much, and it's now low.
It's probably lost over 50% at the very least of its value. At this point in time, as we can see that MSG is literally just doing Madison Square Garden, a massive multi-billion-dollar company, is literally doing equity swaps with NRG. They're getting NRG, they're getting stakes in NRG as opposed to actually making a cash transaction. Everybody in the LCS, if an LCS team could sell their slot for $20 million right now, they're probably half the teams in the league would take it. Probably half the teams would take that amount of money. Which is still 10 to 15 million, probably less than EG paid for it. So she's kind of like a reverse Warren Buffett, where she has overseen a depreciating asset. Now, I'm not saying that's her fault, all of it. Some of it is definitely her fault. The horrific attempts at rebranding, getting rid of Peter Dunn, who built you that championship roster, losing your 10-year-long Monster Energy sponsorship, which was the
Danny thing. That should have been. Think about it. If you actually, people missed that one, Monty. You know, it's even more egregious in light of what happened this year with the esports winter that you lost Danny. You should have been able to keep Danny and Jojo. Danny would have been on like a cheap ass contract. Like, you actually would have been able to do this budget roster but with a better lineup. That's what's so stupid about this. So it's actually even more egregious. Like, you fucked up all your assets. You've actually devalued almost everything except what the Valorant team. That's about it.
What I don't understand about this, Thorin, is Jenny Just and Matt Holst
also gave away FBI, who then won the championship on a smaller team. Like, are we just going to ignore that too? Like, wasn't that you? Didn't you guys do that?
Jenny Just and Matt Holsizer are the co-founders of Peak Six, and these are the people who, for whatever reason, are obsessed with Nicole. I do not understand why she is their darling or what she did to bamboozle these people. But I just wonder what Peak Six is doing. Like, Peak Six, you have had a drastic failure in terms of your own assets. Like, your assets have depreciated massively since you bought EG. You bought high on basically everything and have nothing to show for it now. Your slot is worth less money than you bought for it. You paid millions and millions of dollars for a CS team that is failing right now. Now, you have done some good things on the Valorant side, and that obviously not going to take winning VCT Worlds away from them. It was huge.
So by the way, in that game, they did actually like scout lesser players, and it wasn't big names. That's actually, that one, they get full credit for that one. That one was very legit.
Yeah. And so there have been some bright spots, obviously winning LCS, but a lot of that was done by Peter Dunn and the rest of the coaching staff.
And all those guys.
Yeah. Empire, all the people who, all the people who were there who I think had a very good coaching and scouting system.
All of them.
And as we've seen, empowering Peter Dunn tends to be a pretty good idea for organizations, right?
And it's not like you invented that. You're about the fifth dog to do that.
Yeah,
now,
exactly.
You know what I mean? Like, give me a break. It's pretty obvious,
exactly.
Isn't it?
Exactly. So there are some, bright spots to EG, but at the end of the day, they're not worth anywhere near. They've gone down in value pretty significantly. The reputation is now in tatters. The attempt at a rebrand was a very expensive and massive fail that then had to be done again. You trying to prop up Nicole in terms of her being the face of this company, which, by the way, in her softball bullshit interview with Digiday that came out, where they didn't ask any of the tough questions, she just said, oh, it's an expectations that CEOs be the face of the company. That's literally not true. You don't see a lot of the CEOs be the face of the company when it's been successful. A la Steve, Jack, Carlos, like they have been, but nobody said you had to do that. You guys don't even know who the CEO of fucking Mad Lions is. You know what I mean? Like, most of them don't do that. You didn't know who the CEO of Rogue was. Reginald, even though he was the CEO and famous because he was a player, he really wasn't a public figure over the last multiple years now. And so during Nicole's time, he wasn't really out there very much, partially because people disliked him for very good reasons. But this is not something, but she insisted on it to stroke her own ego. So I don't really understand why Peak Six wants to celebrate this particular failure of a business and this particular individual who, by the way, the Riot investigation from the law firm is still ongoing, and they could still block Nicole from ever participating in LCS again if they find, you know, bad shit that's happened.
They're really going to nail that fucking stable door shut now that all the stallions have bolted, guys. But I tell you what, if any of them teleport back inside, they'll never get out again. I'll tell you that much. Fucking way.
I mean, they also just don't need any more scandals surrounding public scandals surrounding women. So, like, obviously, they're not going to publicly make a statement about that, right? So, Riot's had a lot of those in the last few years. So, I think that this is, I don't expect anything to come from this. But I'm just so amazed at the messaging. So Judy Hart is their director of human resources, I guess. This is not just, you know, they say that people like the smell of their own farts, Thorin. This is like they have built a tiny room to hotbox their own farts. It is next level what this email is and what they're trying to push, this narrative that they're trying to push on people. And we have seen them do crazy things to support Nicole. So one thing you'll notice, guys, if you Google Nicole LaPointe Jameson, is that there is a website that is like NicoleLaPointeJameson.com. And this website, it's NicoleLaPointeJameson.com. This website conveniently appeared when the Danny scandal went down and there was a lot of negative publicity. And the reason why people create websites like this, these are run by PR companies to affect search engine optimization. So you hire somebody to make these glowing websites. The same thing happened with that guy who wrote those emails about Rick Fox that caused, so when that scandal came out,
yes,
when that scandal came out, that guy also had a website made about him that was talking about all his philanthropy. So now,
essentially, it's like what happened to me. Essentially, like the joke is, I should have done this like 10 years ago, but I didn't. Well, obviously, for like a solid 5 years, if you Google Duncan Thorin Shields, it would say that article like fired from Poland or whatever, and you'd be like,
yeah.
And then, so essentially, what Monte's talking about is you just try and put as many things as you can into the website that will be SEO optimized, so it just pushes the Danny story off the front page. Because her dream, like mine with the Poland one, is if it's just not on page one, you're safe. Like most people aren't going to read through every, they're just going to look what's on page one, think that's who you are. So it's obvious that they're doing this. It's very cynically done, isn't it?
Yes, and this thing appeared right after all the Danny stuff comes out. So it's not just that they are taking these lines internally and externally, outing her virtues. They are also creating false websites and SEO optimization to protect her from bad PR. I am just baffled, given that the owners of Peak Six can't possibly know if she did something malicious or not. Like, they can't possibly be 100% sure. Why would they be putting themselves out on a limb here? And if she's doing such a good job, why is she leaving? Notice that she's never answered that question.
They don't ever.
She's never answered the question.
I mean, they tried to apply in this internal email because she's accomplished everything out there. They're trying to be just like Ken Dryden, 6-time Stanley Cup champion. I guess she just thought it's time to walk away on the top, innit? Like, they tried to sell that angle, but obviously no one believes that, do they? Come on.
So I just don't get. And they're really, I mean, as you can see in Richard Lewis's article series that he wrote, where he had like over a dozen EG employees basically say that she was a moron and say that she was a narcissist, didn't do much. I've talked to people, and you know what was so interesting about some of the conversations that I've personally had is that other executives within esports, a lot of their first interactions with her was when she was on panels. So she would go to conferences and speak on panels. And some of the feedback I heard was that she was really quite impressive talking on these panels. Huh? And so some of the executives were excited that she was part of the space, and they thought she was, potentially a rising star. But what I've also heard is that once they actually started talking to her, they realized she was incompetent, and she knew all of the right things to say on the panels
words and stuff. Right, I see.
but really there was nothing behind that facade.
She just sounds like one of those LinkedIn products, isn't it? Where it's like you scam your way in, you are looking like you're legit, but there's no substance.
She's a charlatan. And by the way, you can tell from this email that all of the people who founded Peak Six and our executives there wrote that they are all charlatans. It's just charlatans all the way fucking down at Peak Six.
It's like a company, but they're just charlatans, yeah.
Just charlatans stacked on top of each other. And what's so how do they get money to do things when they make these kind of investments that have had massive depreciation?
Their investors, this is a joke, LSD, and then when they're peaking, that's when they get them signed, don't they? That's why they, hence the name Peak Six. That's when they get the $6 million. Because you think you're on an alien mothership signing a declaration of mankind to the Intergalactic Federation. Actually, turns out you're signing a investment deal for 21%. By the way, we have to address this as well, because the interview you're talking about, the DigiDay one, I'm glad. Again, just like we said about MVP with Mickey X, every now and then the community accidentally gets it right, even though they probably didn't really get it right. I noticed everyone was outraged, thankfully, with this one section where the piece of shit guy who did the interview, spoiler, I even know who that journalist is, guys, by the way. It's one of those people. I can't remember if he was literally involved, but it's one of those ones who went mental about that Gamergate shit like 10 years ago and never shut the fuck up, making everything about that. And essentially, if you're not under his side, you are like an evil right-wing Nazi troll of the internet. So like, it's one of those ballsers. So I already knew he wasn't going to do a great job. But fair enough, they at least did try to put the question to her, Monte. What happened with the Danny shit, essentially? And she said, such an because this is what I hate about this sort of response, guys. You can always just say no comment. You can always say no comment. If you say that, by the way, especially in a puff piece like this, you just walk away. And some people will say, but you didn't address it. That doesn't matter. You win on that, essentially. You can't lose because you didn't give a comment, and you can't get into more trouble. What I'm about to read out will show you this person egregiously not only thinks they're in the right, but they are going to gaslight you about that forever. And they're doing what I think is one of the most cardinal sins ever, which is where you do this concept called Darvo, where you deny that you did it and you reverse it so you're the victim. So suddenly the person who did it to you, they're harassing you. So listen to this quote. When they ask her about the whole Danny thing and point out that she's deleted her Twitter account, never explains, by the way, why. They tried to imply she had to delete it because she was a lightning rod for harassment. By the way, she was using that Twitter account to talk shit on other people in her field even. Oh, then someone had the audacity to @Nicole Jensen and be like, you are shit as well. Oh my God. It's like that famous meme where the woman throws like a shovel of shit over the wall with her opinions. Then when people throw their opinions back, she goes, bloody harassment, misogyny. It's like, you're doing the same thing, love. So this is the quote. They ask her about the Danny thing. She goes, certainly not a factor. We, myself or EG, have still not received any actual complaints from Danny or his family around this. Danny even posted on Twitter himself that he did not feel mistreated and had a good experience. So I know that's been a divide. Why would it be a divide, love? By your logic, there's no divide. Nothing happened and everyone saying that something did is wrong. Where's the divide? She goes, I know people want an apology. Why though, love? Why would they? If you didn't do anything, why would they want an apology? For nothing. But no, because here's what the piece of shit this is. She's sort of slightly giving her hand to it. She knows she did something, but then also saying, I didn't. Because then she says, but, and the way this is phrased is so cynical, you cannot believe this is a person who cares about other humans. But as of now, I have nothing to apologize for. She doesn't even just say, by the way, who the fuck taught this? Because here's the worst thing. People are going to imply, like you said, Monty, well, at least this person must be charming and good with words and articulate. Why the fuck have you put those first, 4 words in there? You just say, I have nothing to apologize for. You don't put, but for now, because that actually sounds like you're like, well, I mean, I know like 3 months I'll probably just get arrested and put in federal prison, so I don't want to seem silly in 3 months. Put that, just say you have nothing to apologize for. Like, even the way this is answered is so weird if indeed you did nothing wrong and everyone's just harassing you. And by the way, that angle I actually think is genuinely ethically disgusting. The idea that, like, if you, like, wreck a guy, by the way, Monty, who apparently, like, begged not to play and he has all sorts of physical complications and it destroys his health, the idea that people like me and Richard going, that's a bit fucked up. Wow, stop harassing me. Like, mate, if you live in a world where that's the harassment, to say to out what the person did and demand they're held accountable, but what she did isn't like abusive behavior, then what are we even doing? Like, what standards are we working with here, guys? It's just nonsense, isn't it? I thought that was a mental fucking paragraph, mate. I can't even believe they hit send on that. Like, what are you doing? That's even just bad PR. Just bad PR, mate.
it's also the fact that at least one of the good things that the reporter who did this article did was confirm that with somebody at EG that Danny is still on their payroll. And she said it wasn't a bribe, right? But he's still on their payroll. And as was reported by people like Thorin and Richard Lewis, was that they had made a deal with Danny's parents in order to keep him on health insurance during this period and keep him on the payroll, which was confirmed by an internal source at EG within this article. So, of course, when she says,
why in the esports winter would you ever pay someone health insurance and salary to do nothing? By definition, you wouldn't if there was nothing else going on, right?
Especially in the first year after you lost your 10-year biggest sponsor in the history of your org.
All those players from your team, like MVP of the league, inspired us to just sit on the bench. Like, you're obviously saving costs. So like that people, she doesn't get this. In another year, you could maybe get away with that, Monty. It's even more egregious that you're just spending money for nothing now. It's so obviously a bribe, isn't it? Like, you're obviously just paying him hush money. Like, please don't say anything.
And of course, she references the fact that Danny like tweeted support of EG. Of course he did. By the way, did you mention when he did that? Oh, it was after the news all came out and you forced him to do it, or you asked him to do it. And he said, I would like to continue getting health insurance and paid by you, please, for the remainder of whatever contract that
Monty, I have. I'm just coming out the emergency room now, and you're a police officer and you'd like to speak to me because my wife, she's got all black eyes and a broken arm. It's in a cast. But then she goes like, you go, excuse me, madam, is there some sort of a problem here? And I go, whoa. She doesn't need to talk to you. She's totally fine. And also, she's on the payroll at my company. She doesn't work for me. She's on the payroll at my company. She's totally fine. So until she says something, I haven't done anything wrong. Like, mate, how obvious is... Does no one get how insane what they're even saying when you piece it together is? Oh, you know that young player that I've essentially bribed and he gets to have health insurance and a salary for doing nothing? Yeah, he doesn't come out and say that I abused him previously. But weirdly, I'm just giving all that money. You're even like telling on yourself. Look at the story. It wouldn't take fucking Poirot or Sherlock Holmes to figure this one out, would they? He wouldn't be gathering everyone in the room. Who could it have been? Who did this? It's you. You put the pieces right on the table for us there, haven't you? See more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, be a pleb and don't.